You probably know that Google and Facebook's business model is to save every piece of personal data you give them so they can target you with ads. But you may not know that Google and Facebook have trackers installed in nearly every website. They're also tracking everywhere you go. Every bit of data they collect gets added to the profile they have of you. And even creepier still, your profile also includes every connection they can find, everyone you know, and how you know them. Every new way they prompt you to engage helps them spy on you, intruding more and more into your life, until they know every private message you send, every dollar you spend, everything. There's only one way for Google to go: lower, dirtier, creepier, and more invasive, until they have their grimy fingers in every part of your private life. That's their business model.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. I would ask each of the witnesses for the second panel to please take your seats. Apologize for that delay while we went through the three votes we had. We will now begin the second panel of 5 witnesses. Each witness will have a 5-minute opening statement followed by rounds of questions. Our first witness is Mr. Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is a best-selling author, a columnist, and a nationally syndicated radio talk show host. He is also the co-founder of Prager University, an institution of higher learning on the internet that produces 5-minute videos in which experts distill complex topics in political science, history, philosophy, religion, economics, and psychology. Mr. Prager was previously appointed by President Ronald Reagan to the U.S. delegation to the Vienna Review Conference on the Helsinki Accords. He was also appointed by President George W. Bush to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council. Our second witness is Jason Kent. Jason Kent is the CEO of Digital Content Next, a trade association that serves the unique needs of digital content companies. Before joining Digital Content Next in 2014, Mr. Kent served in various executive roles, including as general manager and senior vice president at CBS Interactive, and as the director of Online Publishers Association. He is a graduate of Washington University in St. Louis. Our third witness is Mr. Andy Parker. Mr. Parker is the father of Allison Parker. In 2015, Allison was tragically shot and killed during a live TV broadcast. Mr. Parker now travels across the country to advocate on gun control issues, and he has been working tirelessly to remove footage of his daughter's murder from YouTube and other internet sites. Mr. Parker recently published a book about his daughter's life and legacy entitled For Allison, The Murder of a Young Journalist and a Father's Fight for Gun Safety. Our third witness is Dr. Francesca Tripodi, who is an assistant professor of sociology at James Madison University and an affiliated researcher at Data and Society. Dr. Tripodi's research focuses on how partisan groups interact with the media and the role that community plays in understanding what constitutes news and information. She received a PhD and an MA from the University of Virginia, an MA in Communication, Culture, and Technology from Georgetown University, and a BA in Communications from the University of Southern California. Our final witness is Dr. Robert Epstein. Dr. Epstein is an author, editor, and longtime psychology researcher and professor. He is currently a senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology, and he is a contributing editor for the Scientific American Mind. He is also the founder and director emeritus of the Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies in Massachusetts, and the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today. Mr. Prager, we'll start with you.
Microphone.
Okay. Do I get my 20
You would think a radio host would know how to do it.
You would. That is a very fine point. I have no response. I will take just a moment, because my opening comment is under 5 minutes, just to respond on the issue of the Ten Commandments video that was placed on the restricted list by Google. The representative from Google mentioned that a reason that it would be on the restricted list was that it contains mentions of murder. So I was thinking I have a solution that will, I think, appeal to Google. I will re-release it as the 9 Commandments. That should solve the problem of including murder in my discussion of the 10 Commandments. And as regards the swastika, yes, there is a swastika. It is, again, in the commandment of do not murder, wherein I show that murder, there are people who believe murder is all right even today. And I use the swastika and the hammer and sickle as 2 examples. I would think we would want young people to associate the swastika with evil. That was why I had a swastika. It is an honor to be invited to speak in the United States Senate, but I wish I were not so honored, because the subject of this hearing, Google and YouTube's, and for that matter, Twitter and Facebook's suppression of internet content on ideological grounds, threatens the future of America more than any external enemy. In fact, never in American history has there been as strong a threat to freedom of speech as there is today. Before addressing this, however, I think it important that you know a bit about me and the organization I co-founded, Prager University, PragerU, as it is often referred to. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My late father, Max Prager, was a CPA and an Orthodox Jew who volunteered to serve in the U.S. Navy at the start of World War II. My father's senior class thesis at the City College of New York was on anti-Semitism in America. Yet despite his keen awareness of the subject, he believed that Jews living in America were the luckiest Jews to have ever lived. He was right. Having taught Jewish history at Brooklyn College, written a book on anti-Semitism, and fought Jew hatred my whole life, I thank God for living in America. It breaks my heart that a vast number of young Americans have not only not been taught how lucky they are to be Americans, but have been taught either how unlucky they are or how ashamed they should be. It breaks my heart for them, because contempt for one's country leaves a terrible hole in one's soul, and because ungrateful people always become unhappy and angry people. And it breaks my heart for America, because no good country can survive when its people have contempt for it. I have been communicating this appreciation of America for 35 years as a radio talk show host, the last 20 in national syndication with the Salem Radio Network, an organization that is a blessing in American life. One reason I started PragerU was to communicate America's moral purpose and moral achievements, both to young Americans and to young people around the world. With 1 billion views a year, and with more than half of the viewers under age 35, PragerU has achieved some success. My philosophy of life is easily summarized. God wants us to be good. Period. God without goodness is fanaticism, and goodness without God will not long endure. Everything I and PragerU do emanates from belief in the importance of being a good person. That some label us extreme or quote haters only reflects on the character and the broken moral compass of those making such accusations. They are the haters and extremists. PragerU releases a 5-minute video every week. Our presenters include 3 former prime ministers, 4 Pulitzer Prize winners, liberals, conservatives, gays, blacks, Latinos, atheists, believers, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and professors and scientists from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and a dozen other universities. Do you think the Secretary General of NATO, or the former prime ministers of Norway, Canada, or Spain, or the late Charles Krauthammer, or Philip Hamburger, distinguished professor of law at Columbia Law School, would make a video for an extreme or hate-filled site? The idea is not only preposterous, it is a smear. Yet Google, which owns YouTube, has restricted access to 56 of our 320 5-minute videos and to other videos we produce. Restricted means families that have a filter to avoid pornography and violence cannot see that video. It also means that no school or library can show that video. Google has even restricted access to a video on the 10 Commandments, as we have seen. Yes, the 10 Commandments. We have repeatedly asked Google why our videos are restricted. No explanation is ever given. But of course we know why. Because they come from a conservative perspective. Liberals and conservatives differ on many issues, but they have always agreed that free speech must be preserved. While the left has never supported free speech, liberals always have. I therefore appeal to liberals to join us in fighting on behalf of America's crowning glory, free speech. Otherwise, I promise you, one day you will say, first they came after conservatives, and I said nothing. And then they came after me, and there was no one left to speak up for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prager.
Feuer trunken, himmlische dein